Today's subject is going to be about being fearless. And you know, it's funny, we can take that on different levels. Right before the show, the roto-rooters were downstairs clearing out the pipes, and the noise was so loud that there was going to be no way that we would be able to broadcast. And so, of course, I went downstairs and appealed to those wonderful men, and they told me it would just be a minute. And so here we are, blessed to start on time. Now, this would be a fear, if I chose to engage it, that I had no control over. And so we want to bridge a gap today and bring you ways, if you choose to be able to control the fear element in your life. And I believe that's going to become very critical, that we all raise our awareness when it comes to natural alternatives that we have, that God put here on the planet, that are just waiting for us to use. Now, of course, there are way bigger fears in the world these days, right? So, in the middle of the United States here, of course, there is a tremendous fear for the people that know about it, that there were multiple earthquakes in Oklahoma. And of course, Oklahoma is directly below us. And we all know it's connected to the fracking. There is absolutely no way around this. Back in the day, Oklahoma was a very stable plate where very few earthquakes happened. And of course now it's like totally live all the time. It's right on the San Andreas Fault. So, am I scared, or do I have fear that at any time, instead of living in North County, I could live on a seaport? You know, we just really all have to be fulfilled and happy where we are and do this work, because it does make a difference. So, one of my friends, and this is someone that I've known for about 30 years, asked me, was I afraid when I did my first show last week on CCN? And of course, I love her and told her, I said, well, you know, honey, I mean, you want to know that about me because, of course, if it were you, you're putting yourself in my place. If it were you, you would have been terrified. And that is one of the reasons why I think people suffer so these days. What we see on mainstream mainstream TV, or media, would be that the more dramatic the better, the bigger the better. So if someone asked you, are you afraid? I mean, you're almost a little more popular telling them that, yeah, you were terrified and it was so hard on you, because that creates this energy. And we have always fed off that to a certain extent, because we truly are a collective. What we do individually helps guide and direct the collective element. So, I wanted to show you guys a way I work. And when I problem solve, I like to create a thesis, antithesis, scenario, synthesis scenario. And it helps me look at what I'm dealing with. So, for example, the thesis. Well, let's go over what the question is. I'm sorry, I'm still a little rattled from the roto-rooter. But the question is, how do I really feel about being a complete novice and being put out there on live video? And of course, I'm honored to be given this opportunity, but let's just start with why I'm comfortable as I can humanly be. I had a foreknowledge of the events. When the phenomena happened that I spoke about last week on September 1st, friends came to me through the computer, and I know that's very difficult to believe, but all of these great people that I know now, I saw their names flash, and this went on for probably 25 minutes, and they instructed me to like them, and of course, I barely knew anything about the computer. 48 hours in, so I was hitting like. Do I have proof of this? Absolutely, yes, I do. Joe was sitting right next to me on the couch. So he saw the changes in the computer, and he also saw my response because, it was the most incredible thing. There were tears rolling down my eyes. I was praising God. I was wide awake. So, incredibly enough, if you live through a life experience like that, where you're told things and you completely remember them, and I even wrote them down, why would I be afraid of this time? Humans sometimes don't have patience, and I'm just a little excessive, so of course I would have loved that to happen the next day, but I had to wait 18 months. Now, that's just a flash in the pan, isn't it? On September 1st, and here's what's really wild, my Akasha was revealed to me. So, to see my life roll in front of my eyes with beautiful music and with symbols, and a lot of the people, surely, that were there on September 1st, I've known their work this entire time on the journey with being on this computer and coming together with my spiritual family. So, for those of you that know me, if something's going on and it creates that synchronicity, I will surely type in confirmation of spirit. Now, also, if there is a phenomena going on at that time, I will type in phenomena in progress. So, my thesis, right? And in red here, we have the antithesis. So let's go over that. Even though people love me, they were wondering, was the phenomena a delusion? And of course, since I was computer illiterate and couldn't speak the language, and since these people had never used the computer in the way that I did, surely I must be wrong. And when we work with manifesting reality, guys, no matter how much you love the people that you share your experience with and that they love you back, if they are the type that worry and create stories in their mind, understand this, that what they worry about can actually have an impact on your reality. So always keep it a secret. Delusion, right. Now here's another great one. No reputation for this. Why in the world would anybody want me to even broadcast? It's so confusing to people, right? So I have no reputation online. I didn't even have an online presence if you Googled me back on September 1st. So that was very enlightening for me. Some people think that you should stick to what you're licensed in too. So Of course, hairdressers aren't generally known for being intellectuals. And, I really didn't go to college and get a degree in this either. I think that's why possibly some people, as they encounter me for the first time, question, am I data mining? And of course the answer is no, because I experienced all of these things before I ever saw them on the computer. The computer was confirmation of spirit. Okay, last but not least, greedy, 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 right? A lot of people ask me, what do I get out of this? Am I paid? How many gajillion people saw it? And none of those things are the relevant point. That would be the things that those people worry about, because anything that they do, they're looking at the dollars and cents or the economics of it. I get to serve. And Shirley, just like Mel spoke about on her new show, Wax Lyrical, we do, as light beings and energy workers and all this stuff, we get very caught up in the idea of only tips and donations. But surely as business people, we do have a way to also earn a decent cash income. And so I believe this year that you'll see a focus from a lot of presenters on how to really bring your small business together. All right, that's what I get out of it. I'd like to run a wellness center where I work with my hands in a variety of ways and help people locally. Also, through this online work, I can reach out to my friends all across the world and possibly help them. I am a spiritual researcher and do a lot of life charting and a lot of building programs for people. And of course, we'll go into that more as we go along. I'm going to put this down for now. We're looking at the effect that fear has on us. And the question is, how deep does the fear actually go? And does the fear just impact us in the immediate? Like, let's say we're in a car accident and crash, bang, boom, okay? That is acute, that's serious, that's immediate. One kind of fear. The other kind of fear would be more long suffering, more depressing, and that would be what they call chronic fear. So say, from the time I was a little girl, if I was afraid of the water, we'll go with that one. Then throughout my entire life, if I had to save myself and it was swimming in a river, I would probably be fearful. You get it, right? So we have 4 categories of importance when we talk about fear. And these are things that we believe. So, things we know, things we assume we know. And you know when you assume what happens, right? My dad used to always say this. It was, you make an ass of you and me. So you never want to assume, right? But there are things we assume we know. And then there's the things we believe. And there are the things which we are wholly ignorant of. And, that's where we get into a little bit of ego. That can work either way. But I want to show you something funny before we go to our first video clip. And you wouldn't believe how many people actually think this stuff is real. But I'm just going to put it up here in front of the camera for you. That cracks me up. Instant therapy in a roll-on applicator, you see? And of course, this gal looks like she's right out of a 70s Brady Bunch or something. A Stepford wife, I don't really know. But let me read it to you. It says, be freer, be happier, and be the real you. Had it with grim-faced psychiatrists who stare at you in the silence and make you sweat? Fed up with new age psychologists who poke and prod your past until you cry? If telling your life story to a complete stranger isn't your cup of tea, turn to this production. I'm just going to quit reading it now, but we got a guy down here giving a recommendation, and you see he's wearing this great red lipstick, right? And he said he had struggled with his feminine side for years and didn't know how to deal with it. On top of that, he was scared of heights and cats. Your spray has helped me get in touch with myself. When I look in the mirror, I like who I am, even if I'm wearing women's knickers. So, seriously, man, I'm a serious girl, and, Joe's always telling me to lighten up, but a lot of people do see my humor, so. Back to the things we know, the things we assume we know, the things we believe, and the things that we know that we have no clue of, that we are ignorant to. I'm going to read to you guys out of one of my favorite books, and this book is called The Great Work. It's well known by wise ones and mystery schools, etc., but just a beautiful book. So, a little bit of book club. Of these 4 classes of data, there can be but little doubt in my mind of an honest student of nature that the first is by far the most limited. To be brought thus suddenly face to face with one's own destitution is perhaps one of the most effectual lessons of humility that could be administered to a human being. It would also seem that all of the many important lessons of life, it is one amongst those we need most to learn. For while it humbles our pride of intelligence into the very dust, at the same time it teaches us the exact measure and intrinsic value of our own actual attainments and points the way to a much broader understanding and a more just appreciation of all mankind. It teaches a deeper respect for the lives and experiences of our fellow men, admonishes us to a more generous sympathy with them in all their honest efforts, and stimulates in us a more healthful desire to increase our own store of exact and definite knowledge. Now we'll go on to the second class again. Things we assume we know are, in general, the discoveries and demonstrations of science, the data of history, the deductions of philosophy, and the great body of spiritual revelations. It bears upon its face the seeming stamp of truth. Since it comes to us at second hand, it does not rise to the dignity of absolute knowledge. Nevertheless, it is of great value because it is the nearest possible approach to that which we designate as absolute personal knowledge. For instance, no man's mere belief, however honest or earnest it may be, carries with it a positive guarantee of its truth. He may believe with absolute sincerity the most impossible things. Then again, the things he merely believes today, he may be able to demonstrate tomorrow. When so demonstrated, they at once become things he knows and are no longer mere matters of belief. Though he may not know them of his own personal knowledge, yet he may thereafter reasonably assume to know them upon the strength of their reported demonstration. Thus, they are advanced one step in their relation to him, and by this transition, they become of secondary importance in his essential life. Okay. Now, they say, in other words, of all the data of the universe, that which falls within the radius of absolute personal knowledge is of paramount value and importance to each individual. For instance, to every intelligent man and woman who has followed the subject to this point, it must be clearly apparent that actual knowledge, as hereinby defined, is of greater value and importance to the individual who possesses it than assumed knowledge. It is vastly multiplied in value and importance when it is compared with mere speculations, opinions, and beliefs, any of all which may prove to be erroneous or entirely without foundation in fact. It follows with equal certainty that it stands at the highest point of relative value and importance when it is compared with total ignorance. These facts being admitted, it follows with irresistible logic that one of the most important duties every individual owes to himself and to his fellow man is at all times and as rapidly as possible to increase the number and volume of the things he knows. Right. Hang on just a second. And in doing so, select those facts and truths of which he can make the most valuable use. For by this process alone, he becomes the better equipped to just discharge his personal responsibility to both himself and his fellow man. Now let's remember, this is old English, old language. So to discharge the responsibility surely does not mean to walk away from it. It actually means to fulfill it. It is an active work that is fulfilled to oneself and one's community. All right. That's what the great work says about these four categories. So, if these are the things that make up our human life, and we can address them with a natural way to eliminate not only fear, but the suffering that stress brings, then that's what one of the main focuses of today's show is going to be on. In the last show, we did cover tissue salts a little bit and also castor oil. So throughout this show, we will feature different natural tools to bring healing into your being. Okay. Now, back to the synthesis with my thesis and my antithesis, and we're going back to fear again. I'm going to put this up so you can see it. And what the synthesis is all about is right livelihood. And that is when your work and your service benefits yourself, your community, the world, whatever it may be, but first it does no harm. So we have 9 viable points that they suggest that we create, and that way, if collapse comes, and each person had 9 viable contributions that they could make to their community, and there was, 100 people in the community, let's say. What a fantastic database. So, for example, not only could I do, let's say, cosmetic things like make somebody's hair look great, that's the last people thinking. That's the last thing I would think people would be thinking about at a time like that. I would be essential, dressing a wound, or say stopping someone's bleeding, or if there's surgery that needs to be done, there's a background in that, of course. Anytime that you work with sharp instruments and have to put people back together again, that would be a super viable thing that I could do to serve my community. Not only that, but with these 9 viable points, we realize that we have so much more to give than what our basic job is. And the poor people that are trapped in the system, in the box, even if they love their job, so many stressors are there that the love of the job is the last thing that their focus is able to be upon. And many people think, I know that in my parents' day they pushed this idea that you would be able to separate your work from your personal life. And we all know that's a crock. I mean, that is really impossible and insane. And I think that that is part of the way that they diabolically planned to weaken us too, is to take away worthwhile jobs. It steals a part of one's soul. And the last thing on this chart, and I'll put it back up so you can see it again. Okay, you can see there something about my voice. You know, I've been teased forever about my voice, and some people think it sounds very chastising or arrogant. You know, it's low and it's kind of froggy. Some people would blame it on my smoking, and I would say to them, you know, I had this voice even when I was a little girl. It really has nothing to do with the agenda that I bring. I was always embarrassed of my voice. And yes, I was sometimes afraid to speak out loud. One of my first YouTubes, the guy said I sounded like a dude. Now, he was a troll, and he had nothing better to say. And if he's going to judge me on the sound of the voice instead of what the voice speaks, then that's really someone I don't want to hang out with. So please learn to be true to yourself. Don't worry about all the people that could say all the things that they say. And going back to last week, you know, if for any of you that watched, we had the tale of the Green Knight. And so I just wanted to read you the riddle. It says, where life is emptiness, gladness. Where there is darkness, fire. Where there is happiness, solemnness. And where there is loss, wisdom. Please learn to be true to yourself. Don't worry about all the people that could say all the things that they say. And going back to last week, you know, if for any of you that watched, we had the tale of the Green Knight. And so I just wanted to read you the riddle. It says, where life is emptiness, gladness. Where there is darkness, fire. Where there is happiness, solemnness. And where there is loss, wisdom. Something I did learn about the tale of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Did you know that Gawain actually has no historical record in the Arthurian history. So, we're used to a little piece of truth built around a big story. And I would like to take the time now to thank Ralph Ellis for bringing that to my awareness, because it's funny, nobody really ever knew the Green Knight. And surely the way these synchronicities work is if I bring it up, sure there's someone else bringing it right up. And it was in months of each other. Ralph's dialogue with Michael Cesarian and David Whitehead was in the last several months. So, isn't that beautiful? All we gotta do is see those miracles, open our eyes and be awake, and they're all over the place. Now, you know that this show is an experiment, and it's something that I've been given creative control, right? So in my mind, it's kind of like a variety show. And yes, I do want to have guests on the show. The first show, I had 4 days to prepare. Wasn't thinking about guests or the call-in number, which I still don't know, Biggie. And I've put these guests into a wish list. And there's 3 categories that I'm going to share with you now as far as the guests you'll be seeing here on Sophia's Emporium. So the first group would be local heroes from the Show Me State. And you know I'm here on the third cosmic ray in St. Louis, Missouri. At one time we were considered the center of what we know as the United States, right? But a little more importantly than that, do you know that Missouri was the only state that came in as a divided state? So 10 minutes down the road from here, there's a particular highway where if you would be on the other side of it, that would have been where slaves were kept. And then here in North County, which a lot of people consider the ghetto, right? This is where, you know, the brothers were free. Now, as we're going to learn later in our movie Bulworth, that deals directly with these subjects, you don't have to be a black boy to be living like a slave. And at this point, we are all in the same boat. So I'm going to get back to my second category, because this becomes important now as we know our groups and see who we vibrate with. The second category are the spiritual friends and family that I've met on Facebook. And so back when I came on in August of 2014, I knew what my mission was, and even if I didn't have a particular mission, my personality surely would have wanted to become friends with people that I had never met before. And as I was talking about this with clients at the salon, they would say, "Are you nuts, Suze? I mean, you don't friend anybody that you don't know." I mean, they made it seem like it'd be getting in a car with a stranger or something. But really, this is where discernment is key. It doesn't take me more than 15, 20 minutes with a new person, a new friend, to hone in and get an idea where they're coming from. And surely 70% of the time, I would say that these people are wonderful people and are friends. You know, I mean, fool me once, fool me twice, but it's all part of the game. Like the Green Knight talked about, we must play the game. So these people have become so important to me. And you know, it's very difficult on one's reality. Say, if the people that I see in my immediate surroundings have no clue of the work that I've been doing with my new friends, and then, of course, the people that I yearn to have these deep conversations with, they are through the computer. I don't really have too many folks here right around my neighborhood that would like to discuss these things. And surely my clients, I mean, they're in the chair, I can make them watch or let them listen to music, right? But the job to be able to come together and love one another. This becomes important now as we know our groups and see who we vibrate with. The second category are the spiritual friends and family that I've met on Facebook. And so back when I came on in August of 2014, I knew what my mission was. And even if I didn't have a particular mission, my personality surely would have wanted to become friends with people that I had never met before. And as I was talking about this with clients at the salon, they would say, "Are you nuts, Suze? I mean, you don't friend anybody that you don't know." I mean, they made it seem like it'd be getting in a car with a stranger or something. But really, this is where discernment is key. It doesn't take me more than 15, 20 minutes with a new person, a new friend, to hone in and get an idea where they're coming from. And surely 70% of the time I would say that these people are wonderful people and are friends. I mean, fool me once, fool me twice, but it's all part of the game. Like the Green Knight talked about, we must play the game. So these people have become so important to me. And it's very difficult on one's reality. Say, if the people that I see in my immediate surroundings have no clue of the work that I've been doing with my new friends, and then, of course, the people that I yearn to have these deep conversations with, they are through the computer. I don't really have too many folks here right around my neighborhood that would like to discuss these things. And surely my clients, I mean, they're in the chair, I can make them watch or let them listen to music, right? But the job to be able to come together and love one another, I think that it's vital to have these new relationships. And next week's surprise guest comes from this category, and I just completely love this guy. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him after we go through the third category. And of course, the third category should be obvious. It would be the well-known figures, the mentors that I am just so appreciative of and listen to hundreds of hours of their work. Sure, I'd love to interview them on the show, right? And also, in this category, the third category, are all these other incredible hosts. So, being with a group like CCN, I'm sure that there's like over a dozen people that I would really be blessed by having a conversation with them. So this is where I'm going to look for my guest pool, right? But I'll tell you this about next week's guest, okay? I remember exactly when we came into the same circle, and he's a very distinguished older gentleman. He has a lovely wife, and whenever you need him, he's there, like your most favorite uncle or somebody. And he has surely shared some of the most important links that were going on at different times during the phenomena. So, if this man and I have never had a conversation except for on the keyboard here, what do you think a live conversation will be like? And surely we know for the experiment that we don't really know each other like other people do, but we have this deep sense. And you know, you always wonder how much you can say, right? This guy is so important, okay? He's the man that sent me the link about debugging Windows 10. That's how important this man is to me. And surely he sent it to me like 2 seconds after I bought the new Microsoft computer that gives me trouble from time to time, but I know who I can ask to help me, don't I? There was also one that he sent, and it was an old Twilight Zone, and it was called Her Maiden Voyage. And there's been a couple other times that this has happened on Facebook, or not Facebook, I'm so sorry, like the whole internet thing with YouTube. I'll put it that way. You see one version of it, and it's a little bit different than the other version. And the differences in it seem so important. It's almost like he put them right there for me. Your imagination, okay, is thought of as something that is not real. The imagination is very real. It is a creative, a heart-centered place that you draw pictures from. So, when I tell you that I watched these different versions of this same thing, the one meant everything in the world, and the other one seemed kind of like a goofy B-flick, black and white Twilight Zone. So, alright. On tonight's show, or today's show, depending on where you are, we're going to talk about these Bach Flower Essences and how they can be helpful, like we were talking about, to overcome our fears. They say humans are like onions in the sense that you have layers and layers and layers of trauma, right? So when you start healing the inner child and doing the soul work and things, you peel off a layer. You have some kind of a healing, and then there's a healing crisis. So beneath the first layer will be something else that very possibly one doesn't even have, say, a conscious reckoning of. We'll call it that. In my favorite author, Rudolf Steiner's work, he refers to what you meet somewhere along the way of peeling the onion as the dweller on the threshold. And so, you know, I can remember I had an experience when I was 21 meeting that dweller on the threshold, and sure, it was terrifying. they say that that's really a higher version of yourself that holds you back until you are ready to take that step forward. And back when I experienced the dweller on the threshold, I was running around with Mama Lil, the psychic, and she had told me I was to be her legacy, and I was running terrified and scared. So obviously that reflected in my dream world and in the astral realm as well. As a grown woman, I'm ready now, and she knows that. And, you know, she was here on the table last week, that little picture of her. You know, if there was anything that was going to put fear into me about this show, it would be about my movie choice that we're going to show later about Bulworth, because it brings up every dirty, rotten thing that the alleged government run by a corporation / Illuminati dark cabal, bad people guys, and then they mix a little bit of racial tension in with it and a lot of cuss words. So, you know, one of the premise of the movie Bulworth is, what's obscene to you? Is it a cuss word, or is it a way that a person or a system is run and handled? So just like fear, obscenity has multi-levels and multi-meanings, right? Thank you. Okay. Now, we're going to talk about what Bach essence you would use to deal with fear. And Bach suggests 5. So if we look here on the chart, and I know that you really won't be able to see this, but right here in this pink section, we have 5 remedies that are suggested for fear. And of course, me having a reputation as being a visionary and a lot of experience in this stuff, I have went ahead and added 7 more that I would suggest when you're dealing with fear. So the first one in their recommended grouping of 5 would be a essence called Rock Rose. Now, Rock Rose is when you're experiencing extreme fear, terror, or panic. And the vibration that that flower essence instills in your being is one of heroic bravery and selflessness. The next one is Mimulus. And Mimulus is for those whose fear comes from being shy or timid, and they know what those fears are. The flip side of it that it brings to you would be the courage to face all worrying situations without fear. Next is Cherry Plum. The collapse of mental control with a vicious temper, and it would be one that could bring harm to themselves or to others, generally because of a false ego and dramatic over-worrying. If you use Cherry Plum, what it brings would be calm, quiet courage with control over extreme mental pressure. Now, Aspen, that's apprehension, foreboding, unknown vague fears. Use it, and you will be empowered with fearlessness and faith to face, experience, and adventure. Kind of like, you know, your life, right? Last one is red chestnut, and that is overcaring, here again, with exaggerated fear for others, anticipating the worst. These are the projectors of reality, and surely no judgment or anything, but this is where they talk about psychic vampires and people that drain energy. It's their natural vibration to just be in that state, and we have to bless them and love them and help them, and if they can't be helped, then we probably just can't vibrate in the same circles. I don't know. I'm going to show you now the next grouping of 7 and how they sound just a little bit different. Star of Bethlehem is for shock, grief, trauma, fright, immediately after accidents. I wanted to include this one because in these 38 essences, which are derived from plants, flowers, trees, and 1 spring water, 38 altogether, this is the first aid one. This is the one that you need if someone gets burned or cut or scraped or wounded. And all of these things bring fear. Okay. When imbibing Star of Bethlehem, you're able to free your mind and body and clear the tensions that are left over that would keep phantom pain alive. I'm sure that y'all know what I mean about that. Gorse, and this was one that I resisted tremendously because I needed it the most, and it was just hard to admit to myself and then tell the story to others, okay? Gorse is for extreme hopelessness, despair, pessimism, and negativity. It's a point of origin use. So basically what that is it's things you were never able to get over. I mean, go back to that childhood thing. There's gorse. So we all need that one. To give positivity and faith and hope and being sure you can overcome difficulties or challenges. That's what gorse provides you. Now, I'm sure as I'm going through this, you're thinking, well, I need more than one, surely. And you're fine to do that. These are plant and flower essences. You cannot overdose. It doesn't interfere with any Western medication. You can mix up to 7 in a glass of water. So you have no worries. You're not going to overdo it. Okay, vervain is used from overenthusiasm, and you know how people can work themselves up into tremendous fear. That would be a great example there. Highly strung, get pissed off when you have to see injustice all around you. That's vervain. Use it and bring calmness and surety of mind and control of yourself and open-mindedness. Next on the list, walnut. And walnut is a transitional type of help. That means different life stages. It's powerful protection from negative or dark influences and forces. This would be something to help keep the etheric clean, right? You imbibe consistency and determination when you take in walnut. That's so cool, isn't it? And its ability to follow your beliefs and adjust to what you need to do to carry it through. Walnut is always in my top 5. And I have done videos on this. You can find them on my YouTube. Next is a difficult one. It's holly. And holly is needed when we do not have the ability to love our fellow man. When I say that, I mean like a stranger, someone you don't know yet. Or if you're just an envious, jealous type of a person that easily hates. And I don't know if you guys know it, but the difference between envy and jealousy is hateful and dangerous. Envy is covetousness. Mustard is when you don't know why you're fearful or depressed. It's like a dark cloud that comes and goes for no reason. It brings deep gloom and melancholy. So use mustard and you get this unshakable inner serenity and a constant stability and joy. Now guys, I know I'm reading this and you're saying, whatever. It's not a magic pill. It is a way to alleviate suffering. And we all suffer so much, we just think we should suffer through it. This is a way to feel a little better and pull yourself up out of whatever thing it is that's got you down. Last but not least is the olive. And it's for when you're completely exhausted, drained of energy. When the daily walk of life is a chore. I mean, really, it's a blessing, you know, so you think about how much outside forces can rob someone of any happiness in their life, right? Olive is important to use because it brings peace of mind. You're able to meet the challenge, even the ordinary, with energy. That's my little overview of why you would want to check out the Bach. A lot of folks have heard about Bach Essence. Maybe they've never used them on themselves, but I'll tell you, here in my little town of Ferguson, people know about it for their pets. And the more progressive people will actually consider using it on their pets. But isn't it funny that they don't see the need to use it on themselves? So, you know, like in last week's cartoon with Betty, back in the 30s, not too many animals were thought of as members of the family or had a wardrobe or were carried around in a little fluffy purse. I mean, these animals were outside, living real lives. And now we see in humanity that some people tend to learn the most about love through their animals. And we really are. We're all one. So isn't that amazing how a cycle could take 80 years and now we don't necessarily have the energy to love our fellow man like we do that little doggy in the window. And you know I love dogs. We have them too. Okay. Tell you a little about Dr. Bach, okay? He was the man that goes down in history for creating the first 7 injectable no-sode vaccines. A couple of them were dysentery and tetanus, actually. And Dr. Bach, as a child, was sickly, so he didn't get to play outside much. When he grew up and was a famous doctor, he had a mass that was taken out of him, and his friends told him, you only have a few months to live. While he was in the hospital bed, he said he received a message from the angel of the Lord that told him he was not going to die. He was going to pick the flowers to alleviate human suffering. And so he got up and put his pants on and went out in the field, and for the next 15, 20 years collected these flower essences. But isn't that amazing? To be the leading doctor of your time, develop a new, safe, natural thing right when they were making homeopathy illegal. And here Dr. Bach had his own little doctor office, right? And he put a poster in his window that said, alleviation of suffering here. And at this time he had 12 essences. Do you know that England's version of the American Medical Association, or whoever these fools are, actually wrote him a note and told him he had to take his poster out of his own window. And of course he told him, not going to do it, dude. Screw you. And they said, well, you'll get in trouble and we'll take away your license. He says, I really don't care. And so think about that. The most brilliant people in history ostracized and actually run out of business. I mean, they were so motivated to kill any spark of light. And now we understand why at this point in time, right? Now, all right, let's see. I'm going to go back to my list for Bach for just a quick finish up on that, because we've got some other things to cover. But what I did in the light blue was the recommended 5 that we started out with. And then we have the 7 that I added in over here in the dark blue. When I bring this piece of paper to the screen, these would be what they call ameliorations of symptoms or disease. And I don't mean D-I-S-E-A-S-E. I mean a little hyphen between the dis and the e's. So these are states of uneasiness, not sicknesses to be dealt with, say, traditional pills or potions or shots. So I'm going to just bring this up. Okay. And all I did was research the A's, because you can imagine if I would have done the whole alphabet, how many problems that these Bach essences could be applied to. Absolutely mind-blowing. So, next I'm going to read a little bit. Okay, great book right here. Permanent Healing. And this is by Dr. Daniel R. Condren. And these would be one of the Show Me State's heroes. We have the School of Metaphysics here in Missouri, and I know these people, they're wonderful. They're the outfit that put on the Universal Peace Covenant, which I signed my degree to back in my little decree, not a degree, a decree in 1987. Mind-blowing that I know these people now. But the reason I bring this book up is because, say, that it's just what I was telling you about. The amelioration of symptoms and how one feels. So, let's say for an abscess, we'll just look at the mental attitude. It would be repression of thoughts, particularly those having to do with past mistakes. And what the suggested remedy would be, talk with others about the pains of the past until the pain subsides. Prove to yourself that you are more today than you were yesterday by creating it on a grander scale. Improve on what is. That's what this book is. But I'm just going to read you what the universals of metaphysics is all about, so we don't have any confusion on this type of healing. Metaphysics maintains that all people have value, and everything one person does affects the rest of the universe. Your relationship to the whole is important, and as you aid others in their learning and growth, you also add to your own enlightenment. Number 2, metaphysics maintains that learning through activity, progressing, reasoning, and building intuition and enlightenment is the process that creates any physical structure. Number 3, metaphysics maintains that the individual affects the environment, and every experiment he is involved in is affected by him. In fact, life is one large experiment, and we are the experimenters. Learn and grow by affecting the environment. Number 4, metaphysics maintains that people give value to our lives. To become enlightened, one needs others to interact with, to give to receive from, to teach, share, and learn from. Relationships and mental discipline are the ways to understand ourselves. Number 5, metaphysics maintains that not only do thoughts affect reality, but thoughts are reality. One's duty is to teach others the universal truths one has discovered. It is only through passing on the learning, teaching, and sharing that we find enlightenment. Through aiding others, mankind progresses and we all benefit. May we all progress together.